Hello and welcome. I hear a lot of people saying that multi-layer stamping is too difficult or that they've tried it and it just doesn't look right. Well, I'm going to show you today this stamp set from Kitchen Sink Stamps, which is called Snowy Pine Trees, which is possibly the easiest multi-layer stamp set I've ever worked with. Why do you maybe want to try multi-layer stamping? Well, because especially with kitchen sink stamps, the result is very realistic looking. This is the card that I made earlier this week for the Mod Squad challenge. And you can see that I've created a winter holiday scene with the snowy pine trees and the Mighty Moose stamp sets, as well as the snowflake background, which I foiled from Kitchen Sink Stamps. I do like the fact that it looks like there's snow on the trees and I didn't have to do anything extra. I didn't have to add any puffy paint or try to apply white ink, and I'm going to show you how this works. And if you're not familiar with the Mod Squad challenge, just hang tight and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. The Snowy Pine Trees is one of my favorite stamps from Kitchen Sink Stamps. You've got the large pine tree, the cluster of 3 small pine trees, and the cluster of 2 medium pine trees. Basically, each little set that's included in this, or each type of tree that's included in this stamp set, requires 3 layers of stamping. I'm going to start with my darkest stamp layer, which is actually layer number 3, and I'm using Deck the Halls ink from Catherine Pooler. I'm using my Misty tool, which I will say that's tip number 1. When you're doing multi-layer stamping, have a stamp positioning platform. It definitely helps with the alignment. I am cleaning my stamps before I position them back down on my paper, but for the sake of time, I did not include that in my video. Now I have the same cluster of 3 trees. This would be what I consider the smaller trees in this stamp set. Again, I've got layer number 3 and I'm using Deck the Halls. This is a nice evergreen color. If you don't have Catherine Pooler inks, no worries. Kitchen Sink Stamps provides color recipe guides, which you can find on their website, which will give you some color recipes to help you if you have other types of inks. So if you have Memento ink or Altenew ink, the color recipe guides help you. Select the best ink for your layering. Now we're on to layer number 2. This would be our mid-tone for the layering. And the alignment guide that is provided with each stamp set helps you figure out which points that you can use to align the stamp. So one good thing, it's a clear stamp, even though mine is a little bit stained from the inks that I've used. You can use your stamp alignment guide. By the way, I'm using Grass Skirt ink for my second layer. You can use your stamp alignment guide to figure out which points line up. So for this set, you look at the top of the trees and the bottom of the trees, and you just line them up so that they're basically in the right position, one on top of the other. And this stamp set, I will say, is possibly, for me, one of the easiest to align from Kitchen Sink Stamps. Sometimes the stamp will stick to your fingers when you're trying to align it. Again, I'm using Grass Skirt from Catherine Pooler for my second layer. But you can use an eraser, like the top of the eraser on a pencil. The stamps won't stick to that. I've found that that's helpful. Just a little tip. Okay, so we've got our small pine trees on the right and the left. Now I'm going in with the large pine tree, and I have layer number 3, which is I would say the most detailed layer in the stamp set. You can stamp in different orders. You can stamp 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1. I have selected to stamp 3, 2, 1. And I have Deck the Halls ink here from Catherine Puller. And let's go ahead and stamp that right in the middle between those sets of pine trees. We're creating a nice row of trees for our scene. Now, if you don't have a lot of different colors of ink, but you do have, for example, one green ink, you can stamp off to create your scene. What that means is your first layer, you would stamp full strength with your ink. Your second layer, you would apply the ink and stamp off on a piece of scrap paper and then stamp for your second layer, which is what we call the stamp off technique. And that is something that you can do if you don't have that many ink colors to choose from. So for my second layer of color, which is this stamp number 2, I'm using Grass Skirt. I like the way these colors look together. I think Deck the Halls provides that dark evergreen color that you would associate with Christmas trees. And then the Grass Skirt gives it a little bit of green. And I think they work very well together. So my scene is coming together quite nicely. It's time to apply the final layer. And this is layer number 1. And this will be using gray ink. I know it sounds odd, but basically you have the white showing through your trees. And that's the way these were designed, for that white to show through, to give it the look of snow. I'm using the gray ink from Altenew called Silver Lake. It's part of the Gentleman Gray collection. I think the gray highlights the area that you're stamping, and it just creates basically a shadow or a highlight. Don't quite know how to explain it, but it just works well. And if you look at the color recipe guides that Kitchen Sink Stamp provides, they recommend gray ink for the last layer. I'm just going to finish this by applying that Silver Lake ink to all of my trees here for that final layer. So back to the Mod Squad Challenge blog. It's a monthly blog that I host, and Kitchen Sink Stamps is the sponsor when I'm the host. Basically, a challenge blog is a site where you would enter your card for a chance to win a prize. And the theme for the Mod Squad Challenge this month for me is animal themed holiday. So you would create a card for the holiday, any holiday, with Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is that you celebrate, but you need to include an animal or some type of critter on your card. It must have those two things. You create your card, you upload it to the site. There are instructions on how to do that. You link it basically to your social media post. And by entering, you have the chance to win a $25 electronic gift card from Kitchen Sink Stamps. You can enter up to 3 cards. And if you use Kitchen Sink Stamps products, you get an extra entry. You do not have to use Kitchen Sink Stamps. You can use any stamps that you have in your stash. That's what I like about Mod Squad Challenge blog. You don't have to use a certain brand, even though, it is sponsored by Kitchen Sink Stamps. Out of all the entries that are submitted, a random card is selected to win the $25 gift card. And then I pick my top 3 selections, and you then would have bragging rights that you were a top 3 card in the Mod Squad Challenge. I'll have modsquadchallenge.com listed below in my description box, which you can link to and enter your card. So in my first card that I showed you that I created, I used the Mighty Moose stamp set. But as I was looking and trying to decide what critter to put on this, I remembered that I have another stamp set that has a deer and a buck. So I thought maybe let's try that instead. This is a mini set. It's called Tree Friends, and I'm showing you a photo of it because I didn't do a very good job of holding the stamp set up to the camera. So you see the deer and the buck at the bottom, the doe and the buck. There's a grass. There's a path made of stone. There's a stone wall. There's a bench, eagles, or birds, a kite, little butterflies, some flowers, a little single clump of grass, a tire swing, a basket, leaves, and a pile of leaves and a squirrel. So you can use this as a accessory stamp set to other stamp sets that you might have. It's an awesome stamp set, especially if you have the tree or the birch trees. This one goes very well, but it also goes great with the snowy pine trees. As you're going to see, what I did was off camera, I stamped the buck and the doe repeatedly, and then I used my scan and cut to cut them out. You can also use SVG files that are available from Kitchen Sink Stamps. Here's the picture of the SVG file for this stamp set. Make sure you put these in your cart whenever you check out. There's no fee when you put them in your cart when you buy the stamp set. If you go back to add them later after you made your purchase of your stamp set, there's a cost of 99 cents. SVGs are meant to be used with your scan and cut or your Cricut. That way you have perfect stamping and your images are cut out, which is what I should have used. But instead, I used my scan and cut. Now you can see here I have the stamp set in my hand, Tree Friends, showing you what it looks like again. And I'm going to use the doe and the buck, as I said earlier. I've got these dies. They're from a company called Dies to Die For. They're the torn edge oval dies. And I'm going to use that to cut out my tree scene. Let's take this over to my Gemini Junior. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Have the image that I stamped cut out with this cool oval torn edge die. Now I just have to figure out where to place my little critters, because after all, the theme is holiday. Animal holiday is the theme for the Mod Squad challenge right now. I thought I would add 1 buck and 2 doe to my card. But first, I'm going to add some clouds to my background. This is a stencil that's available from Kitchen Sink Stamps. I'm just going to take some light blue ink. I've got Tranquil from Catherine Pooler. I have a blending brush, and I'm going to make some clouds for the background. Not too many, because, in the winter time, it's usually on a clear day, not that many clouds. That's what I'm going for here. When you have your stencil, you purchase it through Kitchen Sink Stamps. It's a digital file, and then you can cut it out with stencil material in your Scan and Cut or in your Cricut, whatever machine you might have. I have a Scan and Cut, so that's what I'm the most familiar with. And I'm just, make sure you leave gaps between your clouds. So you see what I'm doing here. I am repositioning this stencil just slightly each time when I put another row of clouds in. But I'm definitely leaving a little bit of space between rows. That gives it a more realistic appearance. While I'm finishing my clouds, I just want to remind you, head on over to modsquadchallenge.com and look at some of the inspiration there. We've got nice cards entered so far. Please enter your card, and don't forget, it's animal themed holiday card. Any holiday, well, we're preferring a winter holiday, but I didn't specify that. The idea being a winter holiday with some animals, some critters. That way, in keeping with everybody making their holiday cards right now. Now, using that same stencil, I'm going to grab some gray ink. I'll grab the same gray ink that I had earlier for my stamping, and this is Silver Lake by Altenew. And what I'm going to do is just put some gray under the trees. That way it looks like a little bit of a snowbank. And I just am using the stencil. But also you can just freehand it if you don't have something like this that you can use. But see, all I'm doing is I'm just lightly creating like a snowbank so that the trees aren't floating in midair. Now I'm going to use my blending brush around the edge of this cutout oval. It just makes it look really nice, gives it a little bit of dimension, a little bit of a vignette look. So I just went all the way around there. So far, so good. I'm liking the way this is looking. I like having it in an oval. It really draws your attention to those trees. Next, I grabbed a embossing folder that looks like wood. I trimmed it down for my matte layer. I think that this oval die cut panel, I think it looks really nice on this paper. So now you see I'm just trimming it down to 4 1/4. No, I trimmed it down to 4 by 5 1/4. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my animals on my card panel. I'm going to create my card base. And that's it. My project is almost complete. Now I just have to glue these things. I will glue this off camera and come back and show you the finished card. Slowing things down a bit and putting it in slow motion so you can see it better. I really like the wood grain background. I think it really makes this image stand out. And I don't have the panel that I stamped popped up on foam, but it looks like I do. Just, I guess, the gray around the edge of that die gave it some illusion of some dimension. So I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I hope you like it too. Leave a comment below, please, letting me know what you think. Again, Snowy Pine Trees is a simple multi-layer stamp set. If you've been intimidated by them or have purchased from other places and haven't had any luck, I would encourage you to try this set out. It's a great way to get started and get used to how it all works. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would subscribe. I try to go live once a week and do a pre-recorded video once a week. And I have lots of giveaways. Don't forget to thumbs up, everybody. Here's my finished card. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a hopeful day. Bye-bye.